the upcoming weather and also our response to recent days this afternoon and into tomorrow. I've just said to Tori, otherwise people will sort of tag her, I think, with that always bringing the bad weather news. But I'm going to hand over to Georgina now, and she's going to give you an update around what we can expect over the next couple of hours overnight. Thanks, George.
Thank you. Yes, I have got some good news on the longer term horizon, but let's talk about today and tomorrow. So Aucklanders, you're feeling the humidity. It's a bit like a sauna out there today. You may have noticed I was in shorts because it's pretty steamy up here. Perfect thunderstorm weather. We've had a line of very active thunderstorms affect the Great Barrier Island and vicinity just slightly earlier today. And there is a risk that any thunderstorms that form across the entire Auckland mainland area are also localised heavy with localised downpours. So again, it's that high intensity but very localised rainfall that we're worried about. In fact, we have a severe thunderstorm watch in force for Auckland and Great Barrier until 10 p.m. tonight. Now, these things are very localised, very spotty. 99 out of 100 Aucklanders will not see them today. But if you do see a dirty great cloud coming along, it will release a significant amount of rainfall locally for you. And of course, the region is supersaturated, and that is likely to cause localised impacts, flooding and slips. So for now, the best thing for Aucklanders to do today would be keep an eye on the radar. If there's nothing on there near you, you are fine. If you see any colours or rainfall on the Auckland rain radar, then it would just pay to be prudent around travel and activities. For tomorrow, we've got much the same recipe. Thunderstorms are on the cards again, localised heavy rain. I would say tomorrow we're in for more of a risk than today. Eastern areas, so East Coast Bays, Hunua, Waiheke Island, overnight, probably we're going to see them in the overnight period. Whereas out west, so out west Auckland, tomorrow afternoon, evening. Once we get through into Saturday and Sunday, we actually have some drier, finer weather. Great news for the clean-up. We do have a burst of rain coming through on Monday, Waitangi Day, but after we go into a cooler southwesterly regime on Tuesday, Monday night into Tuesday, we are in for or expecting a drier run for next week, which is great news for Aucklanders. We're nearly there. Thank you.
Thanks, Regina. So a really good tip there. And I don't know that we've actually touched on that before, but on the Met Service website, they do, of course, have the rain radar. And that was, I think, what Georgina was referring to, is you can actually look at real-time information on how rain is passing through the region. So some good advice there to just check out that rain radar. And again, just being really vigilant about weather conditions if you're travelling, and if you do get into a situation where there is some heavy downpours and you experience any kind of surface level rise, or you're worried about land instability, then really just take the utmost care. Right, I'm now going to pass over to Ian McCormick. So Ian, you're our building control expert and going to give us an update on the latest progress that your team's making.
Thank you, kia ora. Today we've got around about 95 teams in the field. To date we've issued 196 red placards, 971 yellow placards and 1,807 white placards. We're now on track to have completed the majority of our rapid building assessment program by close of play on Sunday. So big thanks to all of the many folk who have enabled us to get to that position. We're currently working back through areas that we've already been through, just to ensure that we haven't missed any buildings that need assessment. We're also reviewing all of our red placards. As you know, those red placards are the ones that actually prohibit entry to those structures, just to ensure that we can't turn those into restrictive yellow placards, because for a recovery process it's easier for people to move forward. Again, that's a risk-based assessment, but we just want to ensure we're being consistent in that way. If you're out there and you've got a building that needs assessment, please give us a call on 0800 22 22 00. it would be really good to actually get those requests for rapid building assessments coming to us while we've got the resource on the ground. One of the things that impressed my team is the resilience of Aucklanders. My team have been really impressed with all of the great examples of community spirit, with neighbours helping one another. There will be some of you out there who are struggling though with sodden materials in your house, and we'd really encourage you to reach out for some support because there's lots of support out there from individuals and community groups, and also you can call us on our call centre number if you need that type of support. I'd like to also remind folk that if you have had water that has compromised your habitable floor area, it's really important that you do call your insurance company. We would encourage you to hire a clean-up company if you've ended up with grey or brown water into compromising your habitable floor area, because getting something that might be contaminated with sewage in your house often needs professional help to be able to clean that up. So I encourage you to think about that. Find a contractor experienced in flood-damaged houses when you need to start thinking about taking some of those internal wall linings off and drying out your wall cavities. The sooner you do that, the better. And it is absolutely crucial that if the water has got up to your electrical panel, has compromised your outlets or your switches, that you get the advice of a registered electrician before you start turning the power on. Really important. Just want to also notify you that we're notifying our designation under the Building Act to continue to be able to use our powers in relation to our building assessment process, and you'll see some of those going up on our Kotahi page and a number of other outlets. Just advising you that we've now got that power extended for a 12-month period. So when the local government emergency does finish, that power will endure and enable us to be able to help people get their buildings issues resolved. Also want to thank the building industry for their patience in dealing with the transfer of our resource from doing building inspections to doing this important safety work. We've opened up our building booking inspection system again at 0800 this morning, so that you can now book inspections for next week from Tuesday onwards. We're also doing work to free up extra space and open up more booking slots for you to be able to book your inspections through. We ask your patience and your consideration. Our policy around our 24-hour guaranteed re-inspection for a failed inspection is still in place, so you do not need to book your inspection more than once. I really encourage you to just book an inspection just once. Do not book it multiple times. Ensure there's extra space out there for other folk. One of the things I'd also reflect on from the industry is that we have been ringing up something like 1,500 folk who have had inspections cancelled this week. And in almost every instance, you have been really supportive of the work my team have been doing. Let me assure you that we will be putting every effort in from Tuesday onwards to be able to catch up and assist you with that building inspection backlog. We're looking to give the team a bit of some time off if possible over this long weekend so that they're refreshed and ready to go.
To acknowledge again the speed at which your team has mobilised into this very big task, and I've seen firsthand how hard they've all been working, including yourself, coming in and supporting them with that work. So just want to acknowledge that. I'm now going to hand to Stacey Vanderputten. So again, Stacey is the Executive General Manager for Safety for Auckland Transport, and she's going to give us an update on the latest state of the roads.
Kia ora koutou. So as discussed, please, the message here is to make sure that you plan your journey. The latest information is available via our website, that's at.gov.nz. We do update that as new information comes to hand, as roads are reopened or public transport messaging does change. So currently we have 400 members of our road maintenance crew are currently out and working across the region to try and clear slips and reopen roads. Since Saturday, more than 60 roads have been restored and reopened. 29 roads currently remain closed. So far, we have had approximately 1,500 flood-damaged vehicles have been towed across the city since Friday, including 88 so far today. We expect there's probably at least another 450 vehicles that need towed still to go on that side. So in regards to public transport, we do have train services running. They are running at a reduced frequency. Now, where we have remediating works in place, where track closures are in place, either planned or due to the situation at hand, we do have bus replacements running. We encourage people to use AT Mobile to try and plan your journey. So for bus services, we have 85 to 90% of the services are running as scheduled. There are some detours in place on particular routes, so again, planning via AT Mobile will help everybody to get to where they need to be at the right time. So for ferries, they are operating at a reduced timetable today, apart from Gulf Harbour, which will continue to operate as a bus replacement for now. In terms of our cycling network, we actually have a crew out there today that are busy checking the cycle network to make sure it's clear from debris and that any issues identified can be remediated quickly so our cyclists can get back up and running in terms. So key roads, in terms of those 29 roads closed, the key roads impacted to be aware of, we'll start with north. They are Beach Road in Browns Bay, which is closed both ways. There is Glenvar Road, which is closed both ways. So in Central, we have Tamaki Drive, which is closed both ways. Shaw Road in Remuera, it's closed both ways. Now at Rodney, we have Mill Flat Road. The Bailey Bridge installation continues. Residents still have access via the Riverhead Forest. Part of the Coatesville Riverhead Highway will be closed to traffic to allow the construction of the bridge. And in terms of south, we have Awhitu Road. South of Kemp Road is closed both ways. Momukai Hill Road is closed both ways. Sherwood Drive is closed both ways. Nonotau Mountain Road is closed both ways. Out in the west, we have Tehinga Road. People need to use Bethel's as a detour out there. It is closed both ways. Wood Bay Road, again, closed both ways, and same with Scenic Drive. We will continue to make sure that information is well updated on our website. Again, plan ahead, make sure you take additional time in your journey planning, and do watch, obviously, the weather situation over the next 24 hours to make sure that you can get to where you need to be safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey. And lastly, before I move into some further updates from my end, I'm just going to hand to Roger Ball from our National Emergency Management Agency. Roger.
Thank you, Rachel. Tēnā koutou katoa, Roger Ball from NEMA. So there are no significant new adverse developments at a national level, but we can let you know that we're remaining very closely in touch with Civil Defence Emergency Management groups that have suffered recent impacts. Northland, Waikato, Bay of Plenty, Tairāwhiti, these areas continue to be quite focused on clean-up and restoring services to their community. With respect to Auckland, we continue to provide a significant level of support for the operation here in support of the Auckland Civil Defence Emergency Management Group. I can update you on the numbers there of personnel we've provided, which are 52 from the National Emergency Management Agency and the New Zealand EMAT, Emergency Management Assistance Team, and also from CDM groups from around the country. We've got another 14 requests from Auckland in the pipeline, and we're dealing with those as quickly as we can. Looking ahead to the weekend, our National Coordination Centre will remain open and activated throughout the long weekend in order to continue to provide support to Auckland. As we start thinking about the weekend, I'd just like to put in a plug for whānau and people to be take an opportunity to think about your preparedness for emergencies this weekend. So there are some great resources online on www.getready.govt.nz, and you'll be able to consult there and find information about floods and other hazards to help you get ready, whether you're a family or a business or a school or whatever. I'd encourage you to also make sure that you have bookmarked and know where to look for your local information. You do need to know to look to your local civil defence group on their social media channels for information about your area to be ready and during an event, and also your local infrastructure providers, whether it's roads or other utilities. Thank you very much. Back to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Roger. So just moving on now just to a few other updates. So as we mentioned briefly yesterday and also this morning, we had been advised that there are lift and escalator outages from some of those service providers across the region. And we have spoken with lift operators and they've confirmed that they're working at pace to resolve these. Operators are prioritising any incidents that are affecting vulnerable communities, such as health and aged care facilities. But the advice we have at this time is that they don't require any further assistance from us. However, if you are aware of someone that is vulnerable, that you think needs help, whether it's that type of issue or it's something else, perhaps it's removing sodden material from households or some other assistance, welfare support, please make sure, as we've been putting out up to this point in time over, that they use 0800 22 2200. It's always a good thing to do to keep an eye on your neighbours, especially those that are elderly or vulnerable, and let us know if they do require assistance. As of midday today, we have managed to find accommodation for people from over 120 households, and our welfare and logistics teams are continuing to work as quickly as possible to conduct needs assessments and get the remainder of those displaced into accommodation. We continue to have civil defence centres open at Mangere, Ranwick Park, Albany and Kelston. Our Kelston centre will be transitioning to Henderson from today. The new address for that will be Bruce McLaren Community Centre at Hub West, 29 Corbin Avenue, Henderson. In addition to the civil defence centres, we have 4 community information hubs or support hubs that are now open from 9 till 5 p.m. at Te Manua Westgate, New Lynn Community Centre, Fickling Convention Centre and Birkenhead Leisure Centre. So those are places that you can go where we have a number of additional central government and support services on site and available to help connect you in with the services you might need. Again, if you need help, you can't get to one of those centres, that 0800 number, 0800 22 2200 is there for people to reach out to us on. In terms of the waste cleanup, the cleanup for storm damaged materials is well underway. However, due to the scale of damage, we do expect that it will take some time to complete. We talked earlier in the week about 25 suburbs being affected by the rapid building assessments, but I think we got to the point, Ian, where that was much, much higher and it was more a case of what hadn't been affected. So most of the region, suburbs across region, have had some degree of impact from this event. So it's going to take us some time to get round everywhere. We understand this can be frustrating for those affected, and we want to reassure you that we're continuing to work as hard as we can to get out there and clear waste across both our park and streetscapes as quickly as we can. We've used aerial assessments, so a different tool in the toolbox to try and get more information alongside other data to get a clearer picture around what the situation is with the scale of waste out there. And to help with the cleanup, we now have 15 drop-off locations where people can drop off their storm-related debris. For uninsured people unable to access those services, that drop-off is free of charge. If you want to take your waste to one of these stations, we recommend that you call ahead on our 0800 22 2200 number, just so that we can help facilitate your trip through that transfer station more smoothly. There may be times where those stations are busier than others, and we can help guide you through at a time that you're not going to be held up and delayed. I also mentioned that, again, really encourage people to get in touch with their insurance companies. It may be that the event on Friday night and the rainfall we had on Tuesday and Wednesday morning, if it caused further damage, will be treated as separate events, and just getting some advice around what your insurance company needs to be able to help you process your cover then is really the best thing you can do. In terms of water and wastewater, Watercare crews have begun the clean-up and have been working extended hours to get Auckland running again. They advise that all treatment plants and pump stations are now operating as normal. Due to the volume of overflows, though, it may be a couple of days before all of these are dealt with, and Watercare is making efforts to send texts to the customers who reported overflows that they haven't got to yet. And they're attending to cleaning up all known wastewater overflows from their manholes. They've also begun the clean-up at beaches and other public spaces. Again, however, given the scale, some of this work is expected to take some time, so we appreciate understanding and patience with that as we get around as quickly as we can. People cleaning up their properties after flooding can refer to our Auckland Emergency Management notes on cleaning up after a flood, so there's some detailed information available on our aem.org.nz website. Just remember to treat anything that's come into contact with flood waters as being potentially contaminated. So good hygiene practice, protective clothing, and not eating any garden-grown produce that's been covered by those flood waters. The last couple of things I just want to touch on is that, of course, the current state of emergency declaration is due to end tomorrow evening. We are currently in the process of formulating our advice, which will be considered tomorrow morning, and that includes taking into account the views of our partner agencies who support our responses on the ground, such as New Zealand Police and Fire and Emergency New Zealand. So we will have more information on the outcome of that tomorrow. Finally, just want to take this opportunity to thank the many organisations, community groups and individuals that have offered assistance and or contributed goods and services over the past week. In what has been a very difficult time for many across the region, it's been incredibly heartwarming to see communities coming together to help one another, and we really do appreciate all of your contributions. We had a lovely little donation dropped off up to our coordination centre today, and that certainly did bring some pleasure to the teams that have been working hard and long hours. So yes, just a big thank you to everybody who is helping out. I've mentioned this before, but it is often these types of events that bring people together and show the strength of communities, and we know that there is plenty of strength out there in Te Miki Makaurau. So thank you. And that's the end of today's briefing. So I have got a very short amount of time because I do need to jump off to another meeting, but people have got questions, we could perhaps take a couple.
This morning on the AM show, Me Wayne Brown, he said that there were 200 lifts that were not working, operational in Auckland City, which meant elderly and vulnerable were essentially left isolated in these apartment blocks. Do you have an updated number about how many lifts are not in operation and how many people are essentially isolated in these apartment blocks?
So the information that we have from the lift companies is that they had around about 200 lifts and escalators across both a range of residential and commercial properties that were needing some level of maintenance. We've been in contact with those companies that provide those services. They've assured us that they're working with either the customers that they provide those lifts or escalators to, or the body corporates if they're in those sort of apartment type contexts, and that there are no sort of further support needs from us, and we're not aware of any requests to us for specific assistance in those situations. But yes, there are situations where some people may be having to use stairs to access services, and our advice is to anyone in that situation where you're struggling to get access to services that you might need, to reach out, and we will look at how we can help you. We don't want anyone that perhaps is finding it hard to get out to the supermarket or something like that, and that there's a barrier there for them.
Do you have a breakdown of how many lifts aren't operational in apartment blocks?
No, we don't have that information, but like I said, we've been in contact with the providers of those services, and we've made our offer of assistance available if they need that, and the advice we've received back is at this time, they haven't got an indication that that's needed. But again, 0800 22 2200 if people do need that assistance. And it might be that there are other situations where people are finding themselves unable to access services for other reasons, people that have lost cars, for example. So there are many different ways that people might be outside of their usual ways of getting help. And so this is just one opportunity to, I guess, flag that and to indicate that we do have help if that's needed.
All of Auckland's beaches have been affected by the flooding and the wastewater going into the oceans. Do you have an idea of when Auckland's beaches will be clear for people to go swimming?
Well, that's something that we'll be monitoring on an ongoing basis, but I think given the magnitude of this event and the impact it has had on our coastal environments, it's unlikely that it will lift as quickly as it would in usual times. So I think people should be prepared to not be able to go and swim at the beach for a couple of days, and really encourage that they keep abreast with our Safe Swim website around the states of the beaches. As you say, at the moment all the urban beaches have got a black pin on them where swimming is strongly not advised, and then the balance also have a similar advice of not being recommended for swimming.
Do you know how many people total have been taken out of their homes from the flooding?
What was that, sorry?
Do you know how many people total have been taken out of their homes?
No, we don't have an absolute definite number of evacuated persons, and that can be because sometimes people self-evacuate. People may evacuate with support, but then, leave an area quite quickly to go and stay with friends and family, so it's always difficult to get an absolute number. But, of course, there were a number of evacuations across both Friday night, but also in intervening days between then and now. We have had some situations where further evacuations have been needed.
So the people that are homeless at the moment, do you have a time frame for when you're expecting to have their housing sorted?
So we have got a number of people who've been accommodated in our civil defence centres since the Friday event, and it is certainly, we've been working our hardest to get all of those people into temporary accommodation, and based on the numbers that we had overnight, we had enough accommodation pre-booked for people that were staying there to hopefully be able to move to something more comfortable and enduring for them. In terms of people that are currently staying with family or friends or outside of our civil defence centres but still need that support, we are working with those people to assess their needs and find a match for accommodation. So there are bigger numbers than just those in our civil defence centres. Like I said, there may be people staying with family or friends, but it's not a long-term solution. So we're working with those to find an option for them.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest barrier for getting people into homes, into housing?
Well, over the weekend, so just thinking about the immediate event, it was a very busy weekend for Auckland. So it was a long weekend. We had a number of concerts that were on. So the ability to sort of tap into the accommodation provision in Auckland was quite tight. Of course, that's changed as we've moved outside of that weekend period. The challenges are, often finding a match for the people that need accommodation with what's available out there in the market. But we're working very closely with Kāinga Ora, who are working directly with their own clients to help them with alternatives, with the Ministry of Social Development, and also MB, who run the temporary accommodation service.
We obviously have a long weekend coming up. Can you reassure Aucklanders that services will be open, that people will be answering the phones, that people do need assistance and help, especially those people that will still be living and have no option but to live in their flood-damaged homes?
Well, we will still be continuing to run our information centres, our civil defence centres, and we have a full complement of staff working to support this response 24 hours a day and over the weekend, including alongside our partner agency. So if people do need help, there should be someone at the end of the phone for them. Also, again, just reminding people that there is a lot of self-help information too that's available on the various websites we've talked about today.
So we did mention with the service that it was going to be localised thunderstorms. Do we have any idea which area is going to be the most likely to be hit by that?
I'll get George up and then we might just need to call it there because I do need to get to another meeting. But George, if you want to take this one.
Today it looks like Great Barrier already have been affected by thunderstorms, and that's likely to continue for several more hours. Remember, they come and go and they're really small, but impactful where they happen. Eastern Auckland initially sort of later this afternoon, and there is still a chance for evening for West Auckland, those people that saw the 15 to 30 millimetres an hour yesterday in the localised thunderstorms. Just keep an eye on the radar. Overnight into over the dark period, it'll be Hunua, Waiheke Island and potentially East Coast Bays. But just remember, thunderstorms are small, brief and very impactful weather systems that are tricky to position well. So advice would be just keep an eye on the radar before bed. And again, tomorrow it's out west, so it's all over the place. It's very spotty. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We'll be back again at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we'll be able to give you the latest of the weather and anything that's happening. happened overnight then. Thank you.
Thank you.